Welcome to Movie Night, the essay edition.
The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957, directed by David Lean from Pierre Boulle's novel, follows British POWs in a Japanese camp during World War II as they are ordered to build a vital railway bridge, and the Allied commandos sent to destroy it.
Starring Alec Guinness, Colonel Nicholson, William Holden Shears, Jack Hawkins, Warden, and Sessue Hayakawa. Colonel Saito. It blends war adventure, psychological drama, and moral ambiguity into a 161-minute epic. Scored by Malcolm Arnold. Story, pride, duty, and the madness of war. In 1943, Burma, British prisoners arrive at Camp 16 under Japanese Colonel Saito Sessue Hayakawa, who commands them to build a railway bridge over the River Kwai to connect Bangkok and Rangoon. Saito demands completion in time for the emperor's birthday, threatening the men's lives and honor if he fails. The senior British officer, Colonel Nicholson Alec Guinness, embodies the British officer code. He refuses to let officers perform manual labor with enlisted men, citing the Geneva Convention. Saito, desperate and enraged, imprisons Nicholson and his officers in the oven punishment box and forces the men to work without them. But morale collapses. After weeks of deadlock, Saito relents and releases the officers. Nicholson takes command and decides they will build the bridge perfectly, on time, to boost POW morale, demonstrate British superiority, and prove that British officers can outdo their captors at their own game. The film's central tension emerges. For Nicholson, the bridge becomes a monument to British pride and discipline, but the audience knows it will aid the Japanese war effort. Meanwhile, in Ceylon, American Navy CB Shears William Holden is recuperating after escaping the camp. British Major Warden Jack Hawkins recruits him for a commando mission to destroy the bridge once completed. Shears, who faked his officer status to survive, is blackmailed into joining with Major Clifton James Donald and a team of soldiers. Back at the camp, Nicholson's obsession grows. He designs the bridge himself, works alongside the men, and inspires them with the Colonel Bogey March, whistled defiantly upon arrival. Saito, humiliated but dependent on Nicholson's engineering skills, tolerates the takeover. Nicholson's second-in-command, Major Shears, confusingly sharing the name with the American, and others privately question whether pride justifies helping the enemy, but they fall in line. The commandos parachute into the jungle, losing one man, and trek to the river, planting explosives under Saito's nose with help from Burmese villagers. Shears and Warden clash over leadership and strategy. Warden, a demolitions expert, prioritizes the mission above all. The bridge nears completion, just as a Japanese train approaches. Nicholson inspects the structure with Saito, spotting a wire and following it to the detonator in a moment of dawning realization. Joyce, the commando with the plunger, kills Saito to protect the mission. Nicholson, in a daze, attacks Joyce, crying, "What have you done?" Gunfire erupts as Japanese soldiers arrive. Warden calls mortar fire on the bridge from the hill. Shears is killed in the blast. Nicholson falls under the detonator as he dies, blowing the bridge just as the train plunges into the gorge. Warden shouts, "I had to do it!" To the Burmese women watching, while Clifton surveys the wreckage and mutters, "Madness, madness, madness." The film ends ambiguously. The mission succeeds, but at what cost to sanity and morality? Music, Malcolm Arnold's March. Malcolm Arnold's score, written in just 10 days, is dominated by the Colonel Bogey March and his own River Kwai March, blending martial pomp with ironic grandeur. Colonel Bogey and the River Kwai March. The prisoners arrive, whistling the jaunty Colonel Bogey March, a World War II staple mocking a pompous officer. Arnold weaves it into the score as a motif of British defiance and spirit. His counterpoint, the River Kwai March, swells during bridge construction, starting triumphant, but turning ominous as obsession grows. The march underscores the film's central irony, beautiful craftsmanship in service of the enemy, pride that blinds to larger purpose. Arnold's full score, sparse elsewhere, uses brass and percussion for tension during the trek and finale, heightening the jungle's menace and the climactic chaos. The music won the Academy Award for Best Original Score and has become inseparable from the film. The Kwai March entered pop culture as a symbol of British wartime resolve, often divorced from its ironic context. Script development and blacklisted writers. Pierre Boulle's novel. The film adapts Pierre Boulle's 1952 novel, Le Pont de la River Kwai, a French work inspired by the real Burma Railway, death railway built by Allied POWs under Japanese captivity. Boulle, a Frenchman who survived Japanese internment, fictionalized the events into a story of cultural clash, pride, and futility. Producer Sam Spiegel bought the rights in 1955, hiring blacklisted screenwriter Carl Foreman to adapt it. Foreman wrote a script emphasizing the Nicholson-Saito conflict and the moral ambiguity of building the bridge. But Spiegel and director David Lean were dissatisfied with its pacing and tone. Michael Wilson, also blacklisted, was brought in for rewrites, working in secret due to the blacklist. The two did not collaborate directly but shaped the final version, which foregrounded Nicholson's hubris and the commandos' mission. Lean and Spiegel rewrote extensively on location, with Foreman and Wilson uncredited at first. The blacklist meant Boulle, who didn't speak English, received sole screenplay credit and the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. In 1984, the Academy posthumously credited Foreman and Wilson. This controversy highlights how the blacklist affected even Oscar-winning work. Casting, alternative casting, and production anecdotes. Alec Guinness as Nicholson. Alec Guinness was cast as Colonel Nicholson after Lean showed him the script. Guinness initially resisted, fearing the character was too stiff. But Lean convinced him it was a role about obsession and delusion. Guinness brought nuance, pride masking insecurity, and won the Best Actor Oscar. William Holden played Shears, the cynical American, bringing star power from Sunset Boulevard. Jack Hawkins was Major Warden, embodying British resolve. Sessue Hayakawa, a silent-era star, played Saito with dignified intensity, earning a Best Supporting Actor nomination. Alternative casting, Lean considered Kenneth More for Nicholson, but chose Guinness for his ability to convey internal conflict. Trevor Howard was considered for Shears before Holden. Why? Anecdotes, Guinness, and Lean clash repeatedly. Guinness thought the film glorified British imperialism, while Lean saw it as a critique of military madness. Guinness later called it bloody daft, but praised its craftsmanship. Filming took place in Sri Lanka, then Ceylon, on the Killarney River, standing in for Burma. The heat, monsoons, and leeches plagued the crew. The bridge was built twice, a standing set for interiors and a functional one for the finale, which was blown up in one take. Producer Spiegel fired Lean mid-production, but rehired him. The schedule ballooned from 84 to 145 days. Carl Foreman and Michael Wilson, blacklisted screenwriters of The Bridge on the River Kwai. Carl Foreman and Michael Wilson were two of the primary screenwriters behind the 1957 epic The Bridge on the River Kwai, but their contributions were erased from the film's credits due to the Hollywood blacklist. Both men were victims of the McCarthy-era purge of suspected communists, which forced them into exile and obscurity despite their talent. The Hollywood blacklist and their backgrounds. The Hollywood blacklist began in the late 1940s, driven by the House Un-American Activities Committee, UAC. Hollywood executives, fearing government reprisals, refused to hire writers, directors, and actors who refused to testify or name names of alleged communists.
Foreman and Wilson were caught in this net.
Carl Foreman, 1914-1984. Foreman had a string of successes before the blacklist, including High Noon, 1952, which he wrote and produced. The film's allegory of a lone marshal abandoned by his town mirrored Foreman's own Huake experience. He testified in 1951, admitted past Communist Party membership, which he said ended years earlier, but refused to name others, earning him uncooperative status. Columbia Pictures head Harry Cohn pressured him to cooperate. When Foreman refused, he was effectively fired and blacklisted. He relocated to England to continue working.
Michael Wilson, 1916-1978. Wilson contributed to films like A Place in the Sun, 1951, and Five Fingers, 1952. Like Foreman, he invoked the Fifth Amendment before HUAC and was blacklisted, moving to Europe.
His exile meant working under pseudonyms or without credit on major projects. Both men were part of a group of over 300 Hollywood figures affected by the blacklist, which lasted into the early 1960s. Their work on the bridge on the River Kwai, producer Sam Spiegel optioned Pierre Boulle's 1952 novel, Le Pont de la Rivière Kwai, in 1955. Foreman, already in England, was hired first and wrote an initial screenplay emphasizing the British-Japanese cultural clash in Nicholson's pride. Spiegel and director David Lean were unhappy with it. Foreman left the project. Wilson, also blacklisted and overseas, was brought in next. He rewrote extensively, focusing on the commandos' mission, Shears' cynicism, and the moral irony of the bridge. Foreman and Wilson never met or collaborated directly, but shaped the core script separately. Spiegel and Lean rewrote further on location, but Foreman and Wilson's drafts formed the film's backbone. Neither could be credited due to the blacklist. Studios feared backlash, and Boulle, who didn't speak English, received sole credit and the 1958 Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. The blacklist's impact and credit restoration. Foreman and Wilson worked in secret from England, their involvement rumored but unacknowledged at release. Spiegel and William Holden reportedly helped conceal it to avoid scandal. Rumors persisted, but official credit was withheld until after both men died. In 1984, the Academy posthumously awarded the Oscar to Foreman's widow, Estelle, and Wilson's widow. 27 years later, the Writers Guild of America and subsequent releases now credit all three: Boulle, Foreman, Wilson.
Their blacklist experience echoed in other works. Foreman's High Noon allegorized abandonment under pressure. Wilson contributed uncredited to Lawrence of Arabia.
Legacy. Foreman and Wilson's story exemplifies the blacklist's human cost. Talented writers erased from history. Their work on Kwai helped create a Best Picture winner, but justice came only posthumously, a reminder of Hollywood's complicity in the Red Scare. Budget and box office. Budget estimates range from $1.10, $3 million. One source lists $1.10 million initial, expanding to $2.80, $3 million, with overruns. Box office. Domestic gross, $17.20, $33.3 million. Worldwide, $27.20. About 10,000, 11 times the budget. A major hit for 1957. Inflation-adjusted domestic, $194 million. It was among the top films of the year and remained a long-running success. Awards and legacy. At the 30th Academy Awards, 1958, the film won 7 Oscars. Best Picture, Sam Spiegel. Best Director, David Lean. Best Actor, Alec Guinness. Best Adapted Screenplay, Pierre Boulle, later shared with Foreman Wilson. Best Supporting Actor, Sessue Hayakawa, Nam. Best Cinematography Color, Jack Hildyard. Best Editing, Peter Taylor. Best Score, Malcolm Arnold. 7 BAFTAs, 3 Golden Globes, preserved in the National Film Registry 1997.
Roger Ebert called it a great movie for its ambiguity and craft. The Bridge on the River Kwai is a war epic where victory is madness. Nicholson's perfect bridge falls, but the cost questions pride's value.
With a $2.80 million budget, $30 plus million worldwide, 7 Oscars, and Arnold's March, Lean's film endures as a study in duty, delusion, and the absurd theater of war.